Assisted living facilities like this one on Tucson's east side are filled with stories of life, love, loss, and regret. Rooms house residents who have survived the last half of the 20th century and have seen the world transform drastically. This particular room belongs to Dick Tuck, and he's got some stories, based in truth, with room for exaggeration, but legendary nevertheless. Dick was born in Hayden, Arizona in 1924. His family ended up here for the same reason many people were in Arizona at that time: copper.
Today, her mines produce nearly 1/2 of the nation's copper.
My father was a Harvard man and a pioneer in copper, but my mother was smarter than he was. My mother was a brilliant woman. And I had 3 older brothers who raised me.
He recounts watching football in Tucson as a young boy, but not the University of Arizona.
Notre Dame used to come to Tucson every other year and spend 3 days before they would go on to play USC. And we would come from Hayden and visit, watch the team, and Rockney was the coach.
Time to convert the industries of peace into war.
Dick served in World War II.
Train them in the use of new weapons.
And later he would come to know Ernest Hemmingway.
I had drinks with Hemingway the night before, and the next night I had drinks with him, and he went home and took a shotgun and killed himself. That was a well-known story, and it was all true.
While unique, these stories are not what Dick was known for, but his story is so complex it's hard to know where to start. So how about here, at his wedding day?
This is Joyce Daly, to those of you.
It's 1989 at the Woody Creek Tavern in Aspen, Colorado. Dick is getting ready to marry Joyce Daly. It's a sweet and somewhat ordinary scene.
I do have Woody brother.
All right.
You're at the right time.
Until Hunter S. Thompson shows up with a loaded .357 Magnum.
That's all right, Hunter. That's okay. That glass lasts as long as most of Hunter's marriages.
Thompson breaks a glass, and the ceremony continues. After the ceremony, Thompson shoots a hole through a copy of Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, 1972, and gives it to Dick as a wedding present.
You might look for your name in there.
Yeah, we're all in here.
No,
You see, Dick is mentioned in the classic book multiple times.
Well, he was pretty good. He was a little crazy.
All right, gang.
But I got him all the credentials he ever needed to get into the Democratic or Republican convention.
Dick was a writer and a political operative involved at the highest levels of American politics. After World War II, he decided he wanted to get involved in the political process. In 1950, while working on the U.S. Senate race of Helen Gahagan Douglas, he would meet his nemesis, Richard Nixon.
Nixon smeared the hell out of her. Pink was for the communists. She was pink all the way down to her underwear, he would say to people.
In response, Dick volunteered to help organize a Nixon rally, without revealing his true plans to sabotage it.
Nobody was on campus, and I also picked a time that was no good, and I picked the largest auditorium, and about 200 people showed up.
There he was, a huge auditorium, very low attendance, and a bunch of media.
When the speech was over, Nixon stopped and got me and said, "What's your name?" And I said, "Dick Tuck." And he said, "Tuck, you've made your last advance." Well, anyway, it turned out it wasn't my last advance.
But our disagreement is not about the goals for America.
10 years later, Dick was working on the John F. Kennedy campaign. After the now famous televised debate, Dick hired an elderly woman wearing a Nixon button to approach Nixon and say, "That's all right, son. You'll get him next time." This was the first indication to Nixon that he'd lost, and the prank made headlines.
Mr. Nixon, would you like to comment on that statement?
I have no comment.
I learned very early on the way news works. If you had a good story, then you would be in the tomorrow's paper. Well, I got pretty good at figuring out what a good story was.
Politics is an important process, but it's also often a fundamentally absurd one. So it's got a rich tradition of political tricksters who have been involved in goofing on the process, and Dick certainly stands among the top of those political tricksters.
Legend has it he hired a group of pregnant women to hold signs that said "Nixon's the one" at a rally, and once signaled a train to start pulling out of the station while Nixon was still giving a campaign speech off the back of it.
The train leaves the station while Nixon's still giving his speech. Yeah, that was another classic moment.
For many years and many different campaigns, the hard-to-prove but nonetheless legendary pranks continued, so much so that Dick was mentioned in Nixon's autobiography.
When you actually get yourself on the president's radar screen, you know that you've succeeded in really getting under his skin, and I think that's something that Dick Tuck was able to do in a way that was humorous and not especially mean-spirited, but very funny guy.
Mental Floss called Dick the greatest prankster in political history. The New York Times called him the 20th century avatar of campaign tomfoolery. And the New Yorker dubbed him the 20th century's premier political prankster. Despite the pranks, Nixon offered to help campaign for Dick when he ran for the California State Senate in 1966.
Yeah, it was partly serious. I thought I had a chance.
Dick announced his candidacy in a cemetery.
Went out to Forest Lawn, and, the people who are dead have the right to vote too. The slogan was that the job needs Tuck, and Tuck needs the job. I mean, it was.
He didn't win, but still made headlines when he lost.
He was apparently the first one to coin the line after losing an election, "The people have spoken, the bastards."
Happy Tuckmas Eve. The reason for the season.
On this day, a small group of fans and friends gather to celebrate Tuckmas Eve.
It's Dick Tuck's 92nd birthday almost, and he does not like calling it his birthday. He calls it Tuckmas.
Today I'm only 91. Tomorrow I'm going to become a geezer. I've decided on that.
I always love looking to older people who have lived their life well, and I think that Dick's curiosity, sometimes it's gotten him in trouble, but I think mostly it's gotten him into really beautiful situations and has brought him to where he is today. A life well lived, an interesting life.
A life well lived, but not without some painful memories. Dick also knew Robert Kennedy well.
Well, the first thing I noticed about him, he talked funny. He was a Boston kid. And he and I became very, very good friends. And then when he ran for president, I was with him. I was standing next to him with the president when he was shot in the Ambassador Hotel. Bobby was really the smartest of the Kennedys. He was an amazing guy. And the world would have been better today if I had taken that bullet instead of him. But that was a choice I didn't have to make. But I used to think about it occasionally.
Back in his room, in a world that has changed many times since he arrived in it, this 92-year-old geezer still religiously watches the news.
If Trump is the final candidate and runs for president of the United States, I think that's the end of the Republican Party. He even got the Pope to get mad at him. I mean,
this is the first presidential election Dick has not covered in over 60 years. His feelings are mixed.
I'm 92 years old. I mean, I knew everybody and everybody knew me 40 years ago, but it's a different world.